Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History.
A winter's eve, deep in the Alabama backcountry. Far from the clamor of urban society, the sounds of nature proclaim themselves to the keen ear. Far from the city lights, our eyes, indeed all our senses, begin to adjust, to readjust. You might say to a time when we too were closer to the night, more a part of the night. It is no small irony that in the dark of night, humans have often paused to consider the need for enlightenment. Hi, I'm Doug Phillips. It's a crisp, clear night in Alabama, and as soon as I turn off these truck lights so our eyes can acclimate to the darkness, we're going to take a night hike in an Alabama forest. Of course, we typically take our woodland walks in the daytime, but I think we'll find that the nighttime sheds a different light on things. And who knows, we might find ourselves looking beyond the forest, way beyond the forest. This program is about a land unknown to many people, a land that in many ways has maintained its native natural wonders, a place of bountiful backcountry, forests, streams, and wildlife more diverse than can be found in much of the inhabited world. Come along with me as we explore the wild wonders of this land. Come along as we discover Alabama. Welcome to Discovering Alabama. We're in a remote stretch of rural Alabama forest. We've been in such backcountry settings many times before, but the woods are a bit different on a winter's night. The shapes we take for granted in the daylight may take on an eerie ambiguity in the light of our imaginations. Before setting out on foot at night, it's best to consider where you're headed. Unfamiliar territory can be dangerous, so you'll probably want to know where you're going and go where you know. Of course, this is best accomplished by getting to know the terrain by the light of day. A simple log along the trail, you'd probably step over it with hardly a thought. By night, this simple log could trip you up, maybe sprain an ankle. So it's good to be familiar with your route before you set off at night. In the daytime, a walking stick can be useful for many things, for leverage, for example. At night, it's also useful as a probe. I've walked these woods many times and know them pretty well. But at night, especially if it's very dark and you're just starting out, sometimes it's difficult to see even the back of your hand. If you're new to night hiking, a good way to start is to stick to dirt roads that are maybe off the beaten path and rarely traveled at night. Many such roads are maintained well enough so as to provide a slight opening in the tree canopy, allowing moonlight and starlight to illuminate your way. It takes about 30 minutes for your eyes to fully adjust to the night. And once they do, avoid flashlights and matches and such, or you'll just have to adjust all over again. As your eyes get used to the night, you'll be amazed at the mysteries revealed. One of the pure pleasures of a walk in the woods, day or night, is pausing to listen. The howl of a coyote, the hoot of a distant owl, the gentle gurgle of a stream, the chime of longleaf pine needles. They seem amplified by the nocturnal air. Are they? Or is it that all of our senses are heightened by the night? The scent of fresh pine, the musk of decaying leaves, do seem more fragrant here in the shadows. The caress of an easy breeze is more evident on exposed cheeks and hands. Are the senses heightened, or does the mystery of the night trick the imagination into thinking so? Regardless, a night hike demands awareness, demands participation with the natural world. Alabama offers ample opportunity for hiking day and night. We are really lucky in Alabama to have lots of backcountry to roam in. Lots of places, like Alabama's 5 national forests, for example, that are great for night hikes. Also, Alabama's 24 state parks are strategically located throughout the state and can provide a quick fix for those of us in need of nature, though you should check with park officials before planning to hike at night. And the beach. Well, speaking of nighttime intrigue, how about a few ghost crabs dancing to the rhythm of the waves as Gulf winds strum the sea oats? There are many advantages to a night hike in wintertime. Fewer bugs, usually no snakes. The underbrush has died back, making it easier to walk. Fewer leaves on the trees, allowing more light to light the path. But probably the greatest thing is not what's down below, but what's up above. Stargazers across millennia have known what you and I are witnessing here tonight. Wintertime is the right time to consider the heavens. Certainly, the less humid air provides for better visibility. But there's more to it than that. As our world journeys around the sun, winter brings us to a region of space more abundant with stars for the viewing. And there's yet another reason this night hike provides such spectacular celestial sights. We are miles and miles from the nearest city.
Light pollution is a major problem, and it's not just for doing research astronomy. I think it's a cultural and spiritual loss for people. If you grow up in an environment where, except for the sun, you never see anything that's not touched by human hands, made by people, you lose a big part of your environment. And as you say, you have to go farther and farther away from urban centers to escape light pollution now. I regularly take classes of students out 20 miles from Tuscaloosa, and it's amazing how many were brought up in a city and are stunned when they see the Milky Way.
So what? So what if a kid grows up having never seen the Milky Way? Well, the Milky Way is our part of the universe. It's our neighborhood. It's where we live.
And this is the Milky Way. And it's actually the flat disk of our galaxy, the system of over 100 billion stars that our sun and planets belongs to. And so that stretches all the way around the sky, although the brightest part of the Milky Way is in the same direction as the nearby stars that make up the constellation Sagittarius. And so this is where the center of our galaxy is.
Our Earth, and those of us who live here, dwell among the stars. Is it any wonder we find ancient records of mankind looking to the cosmos for inspiration? The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows His handiwork. Psalms 19, verse 1. Tonight we can stand here and know that we're witnessing the sky the way David did when he wrote this psalm over 3,000 years ago.
Some people think that the actual constellations themselves may be like the oldest cultural artifacts that we have, meaning that people have been looking at the constellations for maybe tens of thousands of years. We really don't know, and so some of these constellations are probably of great antiquity. Initially, when people looked up and saw the sun and the moon and the bright star-like planets in the sky, they thought they were looking at gods. There was no, is there an Apollo? And a person would say, of course there's an Apollo. He's up in the sky right now. Like his predecessor, King David, the Apostle Paul looked to the stars, not as evidence of many gods, but as evidence of the handiwork of one God. For the worlds were framed by the word of God, he wrote. What do you see when you gaze into the Alabama night sky?
We do get things that people in more northern states don't. We're far enough south that we can see the central part of the Milky Way pretty well. We can see some of the bright southern stars. We can see the second brightest star in the sky, which actually doesn't clear the horizon from anywhere north of Nashville, Canopus, which is down below Sirius in the winter sky. Another thing that we can get frequently here that people, say in Boston, don't, is we get to see all the satellites that are put into orbit from Cape Canaveral.
I suspect that any stargazer born before the 20th century would never have imagined that man-made objects would be observed in space. Yet their imaginations did observe many things that we still take advantage of today. Pegasus, Gemini, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major. We could go on and on, but you get the point. The constellations give modern man the common vocabulary for communicating about star groupings in the night sky. In the Alabama night sky, few star groupings match the dramatic presence of the constellation we know as Orion. Orion features some spectacular sights that can be enjoyed with the naked eye. Over there, that would be his left foot. To our right as we face him, that's Rigel. It's one of the top 10 brightest stars in the sky. Rigel is about 1,400 light years from Earth, which is a good thing. This blue supergiant of a star blasts about 50,000 times more light into space than our Sun. That reddish glow, which is Orion's right shoulder, is Betelgeuse. A red supergiant, Betelgeuse is among the top 20 brightest stars in the sky. And it has a name which, well, some folks think is fun to say, Betelgeuse.
Alex, I had fun talking with a student in class today who's from Saudi Arabia, and many of the star names come from Arabic because our astronomical knowledge was preserved and extended by the Arabs when Europe was in what we call the Dark Ages. And so Betelgeuse, for example, means armpit of the giant.
The most interesting feature of Orion is a bit tough to see with the naked eye. But if you look closely on a moonless night, you'll see the fuzziness around the middle star on Orion's sword. That is the Orion Nebula.
Some of these constellations are quite interesting. Orion has a feature in it called the Orion Nebula, and it's a place where stars are forming today.
Nebulae are vast clouds of galactic dust and gas. Over eons, gravity unites these particles into larger and larger clusters that eventually grow so large and become so tightly packed under their own weight that they fuse. The resulting thermonuclear reaction is the birth of a new star. We can stand here and gaze across the galaxy to where a new star is born. The birth of new stars bodes well for the long-term future of the universe. But what about the immediate future of this orb we call Earth?
I was raised on a farm, and so in some ways this was an isolated, quote, deprived environment. We were like 8 miles from the nearest town, and the roads weren't paved. They didn't even have gravel on them. But on the other hand, in some ways it was a very rich environment. I could go out and see a nice dark sky. I could go out and collect plants and collect fossils, and so I kind of settled on astronomy after a while.
My family always blames my grandfather for sitting on the porch swing and pointing out the rising moon once too often. And I was growing up in the 1960s when the space program and the Cold War space race were in full swing, so it's something you heard a lot about. And I had had an interest from a very early age in various sciences. So this was the closest way I could come, I think, to touching the universe.
Many scientists gained their enthusiasm for exploration during their childhood. Are we instilling an enthusiasm for exploration in today's children so that they can become tomorrow's scientists? It's not easy. There's lots of tough competition for the hearts and minds of our children. The need to expand children's horizons is a big concern for many scientists.
This is a concern of mine, and particularly, specifically getting teenagers interested in science. Because what I see is that the United States is simply not replenishing its supply of homegrown scientists. We are depending on the world to provide us with students who come here to study in the unparalleled circumstances that we have for learning science in American universities.
Many scientists, science centers, and museums are committed in their efforts to stimulate scientific curiosity in children. And of course, supportive parents can be fundamental to inspiring a child's interest for the natural world. Along with parents, the people most often inspiring young minds are Alabama teachers. I'm always glad when a bunch of teachers are willing to come out and do a little nature study, a little outdoor work. And I see you got your flashlights.
We're ready to go.
Well, that's good, because the first thing we're going to do is turn our flashlights off.
Okay.
We're going to do a little night hiking here. Okay, there you go. Now, things are going to look real dark for a while. And this is a time when you have to let your senses develop a bit. We're so used to being loud and noisy in society, and we don't always realize the value of quiet and listening and letting all your senses work. And that's one reason we turn that flashlight off, because we have to really start attending, okay? And as your senses develop, you almost get a sixth sense of how you're moving through the woods, and you begin to see things. Let's just start moving and see what happens. Follow me. Now you'll notice, once your senses get attuned, you can begin to sense the terrain and a variety of things around. And in fact, as your eyes adjust, you can even see better at night without a flashlight, because you can take in the whole span of terrain now instead of just that spot of light. And it is quite a night to be out on a night hike. All right, let's gather up here close one more time. All right, come on in here. And now I think your eyes are about adjusted, and I think we're rediscovering the value of quiet, because now you're hearing things, and you're sensing things, and you're catching glimpses of stuff that you probably would never have noticed at night. And that's going to be a great experience to take back and talk to your students. And again, I'm proud of teachers who want to learn about this and take it back and share it with their classes. While we're out here on a night like this, there's one great thing that we can learn about and take back to our students, and that's the night sky. Let's walk right out of here in this opening. All right, come on right out here in this open area. Okay, now, gather up here. All right, which way is north? There's a very good way to tell. Actually, there's two ways tonight. One is from an item up there we call Cassiopeia, all right? It's an upside down M from here, and you'll see one leg is bent out, and if you'll come right out of the V of that leg, you'll see a faint star right over there, okay? And there's another way to find it, because over here is what we call the Big Dipper. And if you look at the dipper, the outer part of that dipper, if you draw a line between those stars, it goes right over to that faint star. That's the North Star. That's two ways to find the North Star. Now the thing is, a lot of people expect it to be a very bright star. It's not necessarily, is it?
No, not at all.
But you can use it not only to tell direction, but you can also tell where you are on the face of the earth. If you were to crash in an airplane and the North Star was right overhead, you'd be at the North Pole, because the North Star is the one star that stays right over the pole, and all the others spin as the Earth turns. If you crashed and the North Star was on the horizon, where would you be?
The equator.
That's right, that's right. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the Southern Cross, which is right over the South Pole. And you can use either one of those to tell direction or where you are on the face of the Earth.
Are there any planets that we can see, Dr. Doug?
Well, I'm looking at one right now. That happens to be Jupiter, that brightest shiny object. So you can learn not only about the stars, but about the planets. You can get better acquainted with your own solar system by taking a night hike and looking at the night sky.
This has been fun.
Oh, thanks.
Well, great. Well, I'm proud of y'all, and I hope you can share this with your students too, okay?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get you back out to your vehicles now, okay? Follow me. There are a number of ways you can get started enjoying the magic of an Alabama night. The University of Alabama Physics and Astronomy Department, for example, offers public nights during the school year. Here, visitors can explore the firmament while sharing the knowledge of university educators. One such January public night featured a total eclipse of the moon.
The three most famous astronomers in the world. No?
This is a kind of program that's developed over the years. We found out that there really is enormous public interest in celestial events. A couple of times we got overwhelmed by the response, for example, when comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 crashed into Jupiter several years ago. So we've tried to make a bit more of a point of hosting public events for particular happenings, bright comets, eclipses, especially good views of the planets and so forth.
First, for an eclipse of the moon, you have to have the moon exactly opposite the sun in the sky. That's so the Earth can get between the sun and the moon and cast its shadow onto the moon. And this happens twice a year, in January and say late June, early July. And that's when the intersection of the moon's orbit and the Earth's orbit points toward the sun. Science is, it's merely a tool and a source of wonder. And our hope is to have education for our children that will give them this tool and this source of wonder.
Any of the local astronomy clubs are happy to share their love of the heavens with newcomers. There are a number of websites and magazines featuring star charts that can give you a heads up when it comes to knowing what you're looking at when you're looking up.
Amateur astronomers make observations that can be combined into databases, and these can be used by professional astronomers. And sometimes amateur astronomers make really important discoveries. For example, an amateur astronomer in Georgia was looking at a galaxy and suddenly noticed a bright star in the galaxy that shouldn't be there. And it turns out that was a supernova. And so his observations of that supernova are some of the earliest observations right after the explosion that have ever been obtained. And so there's a great deal of work in astronomy that can be done by amateurs, and plus it's a lot of fun.
A star trek through an Alabama night can be a magical experience. Dark though it may be, there is so much to see, so much to learn. The facts can be fascinating.
The equator, the Earth rotates at just about 1,000 miles an hour, and we're going almost 1 million miles a day around the sun. The sun is whizzing in its orbit through the galaxy at something like 150 miles a second. Our galaxy is milling around under the gravity of its local neighbors, and our whole group of galaxies is falling toward the Virgo cluster of galaxies at about 500 miles a second. With all that, it's really surprising you don't feel dizzy.
Sometimes we do feel a little dizzy, but it's not the velocity of hurtling through space that spins us around. All too often it's the spin of our daily lives. The hustle and bustle of modern life, and yes, the excessive bright lights, can often be more unsettling than the night shadows. For countless centuries, mankind has found peace in the night. Like the psalmist, we have looked to the heavens for inspiration, for perspective, for contemplating our unique place in the universe. For Alabamians, our particular place in the universe is indeed unique. While many regions today are largely urbanized, Alabama is blessed with lots of countryside, lots of wild lands, still free of crowds, noise, and city lights. Here we can still enjoy the night, unobscured in its timeless glory.
This program is supported by grants from the Solon and Martha Dixon Foundation, the Alabama Wildlife Federation, working for wildlife since 1935, and the Robert G. Whaley Charitable Trust.